Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here, not live on a Monday. We apologize for that. Sometimes life just gets in the way, right, John?
It does.
Sometimes
old school.
Things just happen.
We're going back to our roots.
This is going back to our roots. We will be live Wednesday as a makeup post-game. You guys seem to like that stuff, so we're going to keep rolling with it when DC United travels to the New England Revolution. But before we get into DC, before we talk about what happened last night, we do want to talk Spirit. Spirit will actually probably take up the majority of the show because of what's happened with everything with the club and the team and just everything involved with that. I guess we'll start with should we start with the news, John, or should we talk about the game?
Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about the game,
yeah.
And then we'll get deep into all of the things that went on prior to that. That's last week.
Yes, let's talk about the game. So, Washington Spirit traveled to Houston to take on the Houston Dash, which they have been, I believe, perfect against. I don't think they've lost a game to them, and that continued, though not the way we would expect. The big news, of course, coming out on the bench was that Trinity Rodman did not start the game. Started on the bench, probably the Spirit's most exciting player. Ashley Sanchez was out there. A game that started well. It started very, very well for the Washington Spirit. Opened up with a excellent goal from Paige Nielsen. Goal of the week, just a rocket into the corner. Her first goal of her NWSL career, professional career. I think we I don't know if she had any goals. I know she went to the A-League for a bit. So
she said when she used to play forward, I think when she was in Australia, she scored in the post game. She talked about her goals from the old days, but. Aubrey Bledsoe was with her during the postgame, and it's very clear that Paige talks about her goal-scoring prowess frequently, all the time. So when she talked about that, she started to laugh. So I think that this was I think that they were enjoying themselves having had that goal finally scored in a real game.
Yep, and I think it was a very nicely well taken goal off the corner kick, pretty early in the game, if I remember correctly. We're having to dig our memory back, guys. We did by the way, Yeah, we did a whole which you can go watch, a entire restream of the game with our commentary, which is a lot of fun, to watch. And then I will say the Spirit definitely offensively. I don't know if they really ever got much going in this game. There were a couple opportunities, but other than that, not a whole lot that really comes to mind. Defensively, I think they held strong. I think the Dash generated some chances, but it sort of seemed like this game definitely swayed. It was the Spirit, right off the get go. Obviously with the Paige Nielsen goal. Then we saw the Dash kind of take over a little bit and start to press and push the game.
Yeah, then you're right so that was the first half. I think was largely. I don't want to say Spirit dominant, but Houston was not really very challenged in the goal. There was a close opportunity minutes after the goal where Tara Mikione hit the crossbar and Ashley Sanchez.
Right, very true.
So certainly, I think there were moments where the Dash were, somewhat resurgent, but the Spirit had 58.5% of possession in the first half and 85% passing accuracy. So a pretty good game. The Dash came out. As probably took control of the second half. Unfortunately for the Dash, Tori Huster scores another goal that was probably, I don't want to say goal of the week, but certainly a very well struck opportunity for Tori Huster.
It is nice when the defense just kind of pulls off and sort of lets you waltz into the box. I think the Dash were expecting a pass. I forget who was out. I forget who was out on sort of the left side on that goal. I remember there was a player sort of drifting out left, and we were on the stream. We're like, make the pass, make the pass, and she's like, nope, I'm gonna take it myself, and shows what we know. She buries it in the corner. So 2-0. You're feeling pretty good. Tara Mikione with the assist on that goal. You're feeling pretty good. You're like, all right, we're gonna cruise and we're gonna cruise. We're just gonna cruise to a 2-0 victory.
And then there was a corner kick. The kryptonite for all Washington Spirit games.
Yeah,
Veronica Goalazo scores off of a corner, if I'm remembering correctly, sort of a ball dribbling around the box a little bit and gets stuck in. So 2-1 at that point in the 61st minute. The Spirit were very much on their back foot after this. So 2-0 lead. I think I made a crack about the cliche about dangerous goals, dangerous games down 2-0, but it appeared to be that way because then Michaela Abam, a Washington Dash or Houston Dash Academy player who had just signed that weekend, gets subbed on and then scores the tying goal in the 83rd minute, and that was somewhat of a gut punch. Even though you're on the road, right? I think that it's always tough when you're in a position to be upset with a draw on the road, but you are sometimes when you're when you have a 2-goal lead in the 53rd minute. You think, all right, well, let's just see this out. Let's just be strong here, and that did not happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if you ask fans, again, it's one of those things, you ask fans at the beginning of the game, hey, the game finishes 2-2, you're like, okay, that's, maybe slightly disappointing, but it's on the road, after the week the Spirit had, which we'll get into in a minute, I think you would have taken that. But then, you see the 2-0 result, leading for most of the game, and then to just kind of lose it, and to lose it in the fashion they did. I think the set piece goal was maybe not as worse. I think the second goal was definitely bad. It was a complete defensive breakdown.
Paige Nielsen and Sam Stopp both had mistakes that led to the breakaway occurring.
Yeah, so we're obviously very, very much waiting for Kelly O'Hara and Emily Sonnet to return to the fold, because they appeared to be. I think we were all kind of thinking, well, I think the defense will be fine.
Right.
I think after this game and sort of what's transpired for the Spirit, they kind of need those players. They're fine in the attack; they can generate chances going forward. But to see out games, I think they need the U.S. women's national team players and Rotter as well from Sweden.
Since mid-July, they've conceded 3 against Gotham. They got the shutout against Racing Louisville, but then 3 goals again against Chicago, and then conceded 1 against Portland last week, and then 2 again to Houston. So you're absolutely right. That was what we assumed to be the strong point of this team, even within depth. But there have been some injuries, right? I think Tegan McGrady being out. They are now very much excited to get those players back. I think that will be a big help for them coming into this stretch. They've got, there's just no easy points in NWSL aside from playing Kansas City, who just signed or just traded for Adriana French. So I don't want to say they're maybe a little bit harder now to score upon, but overall, still they're probably the only walk for most teams in NWSL, and they've got some challenging games coming up here in the next couple days.
Yeah, chance to get a win. Just get a win at Segra Field. I think that's the game you're circling on your calendar. They've been struggling to do that. But they do have the next game against the Orlando Pride Sunday at 4 p.m. So that should be a good match. They're still sitting in the playoffs despite the draw, despite the result. Very, very tight in that playoff race. And again, they still sit. A win puts them above Gotham at this point. Again, there's some weird games at play, but you always like to have the points in hand as opposed to trying to chase.
For sure. You know that this season is going to end. It's going to be the last couple games of the season determining.
Yep.
So just to check that out, the last 3 games of the season are Racing Louisville at home. That's a game you like. Mm-hmm. OL Reign away on their stupid baseball field. They've won there before this season. And then home to Houston Dash for maybe some revenge. So it sets up for them pretty decently well. They've got a tough run here now. The gauntlet is the Pride, the Courage, and then the Thorns in a row. But get 4 points out of there, and you're probably feeling all right. Yeah,
and I think at this point, this is a team that is building in. I think they're a little bit ahead of schedule, and now it's on to the Spirit to right the ship now. After the news that's happened, I think we'll transition to that. Obviously, the news that came out. So it started out very awkwardly, and we talked a little bit about this on our post game show. But I think we want to expand upon it a little bit.
Assume you didn't watch the post game show. Assume you were doing something super important on a Friday night and couldn't join us. We'll just start from that premise.
I think someone sitting through 3 hours, that was all in one continuous stream. So I think we're pretty set in that. But basically, the news first broke that Richie Burke was stepping down due to health issues. So obviously, the word's been going out. Oh, we're so sorry, coach. And then again, journalists doing what journalists is doing. And I think the Spirit thought maybe they could get away with this a little bit. I'm still very confused. Did the story break, or was the story about to break? Maybe I just feel like there's more to this, because it all seemed very weird. It's like he's stepping down, health issues. Oh, okay, so sorry, coach. Then it's like no, there's no health issues. It's all related to this. I'm referring to the Washington Post article that really started this whole thing. I am wondering if that was about to break, because that seemed very put together very, very quickly. So I'm very curious as to the timing of the whole thing.
I think you draw out something important there, because if you read the thread, I'm trying to remember the author's name, and I want to make sure that I get it before we move on. But it was very much an issue of, this is a story I've been working on for weeks, and talking to players and getting sort of corroboration on a lot of the things that I've discussed. It's not under soccer. Here we go. Molly Hensley Clancy is her name. Mm-hmm. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you've read it by now. If you haven't, you should definitely look at it. But I think you're right, Ted. I think that they were asked for comment earlier in that week, and they tried to figure out, like, all right, well, if we say it's this, we can maybe bury this story and not worry about it. But I can't imagine they actually really thought that would be the case. I said it on the stream. I've said it on Twitter. NWSL's a new beat for me. So being sort of like covering it every week in and week out, it's new for me. But I would say that the NWSL media is tenacious in pursuit of a story, and they don't let things go. So if the thought was we can just, pull a fast one on the national writers that cover NWSL, if they'll just leave it alone, it'll be fine. Then that's insane, because other leagues stuff doesn't get away because there's a million people covering it, right? Like baseball stuff doesn't get swept under the rug because there's 5,000 paid people to cover it. NWSL, it's a lot fewer, and some of the people are doing it either not being paid well or paid very or not at all. They're going to get this. They're going to write on it, and they're going to report on it until they get the truth out, and that's what happened very quickly.
And I think they made a huge so I think we talk about the media markets and what's sort of been going on, in some of the other stories in the NWSL, with the story of the GM that was sort of let go and everything like that. There's been some reporting on that, but there hasn't been a whole lot. And I think the Spirit maybe thought, well, I think we can kind of pull the same thing. Maybe not have a lot of people, attention drawn to it. I think they made the mistake of the fact that the Washington Post is actually one of the better. I mean, they now have two beat writers now that are covering soccer. They have Molly Hensley Clancy, and they have Stephen Goff. And Molly, and let's give credit. I mean, I think Stephen Goff for a long time has been the only person really covering soccer, and he's one of the most well-known sports journalists. Now they have two, and I think Molly has really put forward a good article, and really, she deserves a lot of credit. She was asking these questions that maybe people weren't asking or figuring and trying to get the answers to. I'd be very curious to know, like, the genesis of this story, and sort of when it started to pick up, because she's been working on this for a long time, and hearing that lets me know that this was the Spirit trying to sweep this under the rug, and that's sad.
I think her beat is actually investigative sports journalism, so I think it might be beyond just soccer. It might be all sports, but I swear that I saw a tweet from Kai a couple weeks ago, sort of vague booking, sort of being foreboding about sort of give strength to get through something, and I think this has been. I imagine that she was the centerpiece of this, because she's been sort of outspoken, not about her time with the Spirit. That's not what that's. And in the article, and we'll sort of talk through the article a little bit here. Like it basically said there were a number of players who either retired from soccer, left the team because they couldn't deal with the abuse, did not feel comfortable, and she's one of the more notable players, even though she played, I think not at all in the Challenge Cup, and then left. And I think she was on trial at a team in Europe, and then now has sort of like kind of retired. I don't know if you wouldn't call it retired, but is not playing anymore. But she's stated quite literally she's not going to play soccer anymore. Right. She is. I know people who follow her. I think she's trying to go to law school. I think that's what she said. So that's what she's trying to do at this point. So soccer is behind her at this point. So anyway, so we'll get the article. Again, this is all sort of. It's the Post, so I would say that it's alleged, but I would say it's sourced reporting at this point. Basically, an environment was created where it's not just a matter of a coach that's loud and angry and yelling, as many coaches do throughout men's sports, women's sports, all over the place. But it was described as verbal and emotional abuse, targeted. 4 players have left the Spirit in the last 2 years specifically because of the treatment. And that there's other stuff in here about the N-word being used. There's stuff here about other just sort of like
other assistant coaches.
Assistant coach Tom Torres was apparently let go after hitting on players at the after party for the 2020 Challenge Cup. So it's all right. So put that to the side. It is not uncommon for people to behave badly, like and be fired. Like it's not good. It happens. It's endemic. It's horrible, but it's not surprising because it happens. The problem here, and the problem that is really, I think, sticking in the craw of a lot of fans, both Spirit and NWSL wide, is that this is not a conventional coach-owner situation where the owner there's some soccer person in between the owner who's picked a coach who has a long career somewhere else, and that's why they got chosen, and it's obvious. Mm-hmm. The challenge here is that the reason that Richie Burke was brought here, the straight line is that he coached the daughter of the owner. And that, I mean, he had played professionally for the Washington Dips, for another Washington indoor team, played for a team in England, but had only coached at the youth level ever. And even at that point, there was extensive reporting by Black and Red, and I believe by other outlets as well, about the extent of the mistreatment that players faced under him, the targeting, the verbal abuse. I think homophobic comments was one of the other things that were reported, personal attacks. So the problem here is that you can get rid of Richie Burke, and they have. Well, right now I believe they're doing an investigation into the league is investigating, and they're investigating HR violations is how it's being termed. Likely he's gone. I think that's a good assumption at this point. But the owner, who theoretically would have known the previous experience on the youth team because his daughter was on the team, it was brought to all of these allegations about his previous tenure were brought to the Spirit. The Spirit said that they conducted an investigation. The NWSL, they said they conducted an investigation. They were satisfied that would not be repeated. And the tragedy is it almost exactly repeated. It's just with adult top professionals. This happened, and it to the extent that these adult women were driven from the sport due to their treatment, and that's not nothing. But again, to get back to it, the challenge here is there's a culture of unaccountability when the person who signs the checks, the person who sets the tone, the person who is seen very much as being, the face of the organization in public, Steve Baldwin, put these people in this position with the knowing of that. So it becomes challenging to think what the path forward here is with the same characters in place other than Richie Burke. Mm-hmm. How do you know for sure that the next person that gets brought in is the right fit? Obviously, more attention and scrutiny will be on Baldwin and the Spirit to do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's some people would like the owner to go. Some people would like the owner to sell. Now, there are other owners. Obviously, we talked all about the 5,000 ownership group that got brought in before the season started with very high profile individuals, and also you have someone like Michelle Kang, who has joined as a actual part of the ownership group. I think more so an owner than the Chelsea Clinton at all. That group, I think she has capital involved. She and Bill Lynch and Steve Baldwin are stakeholders. She was with the commissioner at the game on Friday, and the other owner of the Houston Dash, whose name I cannot recall. I assume this came up. I assume that this sort of thing said, how can we move past this? What do we need to do? So there is a path forward. I think if there was accountability, it would look like Steve Baldwin potentially selling his shares, or anybody that was sort of involved in this conversation, particularly if the investigation yields that not only was the treatment abated or abetted by the ownership group from the previous incarnation for the youth team, but that they knew that the players who left for that reason, and 4 of them did, and they didn't say, all right, we need to step in here. This is getting over the top here. We need to figure out what's actually going on. If they knew and they said, this is just the way it goes, what are you going to do? Then they do have to clean house. There's nothing else. I don't think there's anything else you could do. What do you think?
I think you bring up, so I do want to, bring up this is not the first time that the Washington Spirit ownership has made super questionable decisions. If you remember, I think it was Bill Lynch was just the sole owner at the time. There was, Megan Rapinoe doing the demonstrations, for Black Lives Matter by kneeling during the anthem. And the response, basically amongst Bill Lynch, the owner, was to just play the anthem before the players got out there to prevent Megan Rapinoe from doing her demonstration. That set off a lot of players upset. Ali Krieger, Crystal Dunn, a lot of them were upset and eventually left the team, and that led to a massive reset on the whole team. And then I remember the new ownership group comes in and say, okay, maybe things will be a little bit different. Maybe it'll be something new. And then, you saw who they hired. I saw who they hired, and I remember being extremely negative on the hire. I'm like, you're hiring, this white English male who has zero professional coaching experience, has some youth coaching experience. Like, what are you doing? Like,
that's the big thing, right? I think go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry, you don't interrupt. But like, if DC United did that, would DC United ever consider something like that? No. Would any other top tier professional team even consider something like that, unless it's like a person inside the organization, who's done a good job, growing, bringing up players into the professional ranks? That's the only time you ever see something like that. Not some, random person who's literally has maybe a couple youth coaching experience, but nothing of note, nothing that says, this person definitely deserves to be part of this. I mean, you didn't hear about any players that had played under him that, made the national team and stuff like that. Nothing. And so it all stunk of like, an owner hiring his friend. And then we all got kind of a little bit, we got a little bit blind, we said, okay, maybe all of it was a little bit overblown. Maybe he's with professionals now, so he can't do that type of stuff. So maybe he's holding back a little bit.
And he's very personable in media. He's very pleasant to 100%. Deal with. So that's the public facing versus the private facing, right? It's very hard to tell.
And we had media, and again, I said this on the postgame show. Not blaming anybody in Spirit Media for, pushing any type of narrative or for they're doing their job. They're out there to produce content to get fans engaged. But you look at the content with the trainings and everything, and it all seemed like everybody was having a good time. I remember there was one since, I think it was Anna Helferty's birthday, and they were like, she had to tell a joke, otherwise people had to run laughs. And like, it all seemed very joyful and very fun. But it almost feels like, as fans, you've been lied to for the past 2 years. You've been lied to that things were good and things were not good. And then it even brings up, all the big moves, even the small ones, of course, are absolutely horrifying. If you look at the move to trade Rose Lavelle, the excuse was, she's going to Europe. We need someone now. And, to me, that was like, okay, that makes sense. And then you look at Mallory Pugh, who's having a renaissance under, suddenly out of that, now all that comes into question.
And Rose was only in Europe for half of a season, and then she came back. So maybe we could have waited that out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So that brings up, it brings up a lot of things, and it all seems very obvious now. And, I feel as fans we've been betrayed, and now the ownership group has to figure out their next hire. They have to nail the next hire. Mm-hmm. It has to be somebody who can come in and really be a force. I forget the Ward. I know his last name's Ward. I can't think. Chris Ward. Really did. I thought,
he said the right thing.
Again, it's hard to trust. The public facing, it's hard to trust. But he really gave an impassioned speech. Really, the team has hired sports psychologists, brought them in, to really try to have them work through. He's, talked about how resilient they've been in sort of working through this. But I mean, it's that's all, again, all public facing. So the team has a long way to go to rebuild that trust with a lot of their hardcore fans. And I thought the Spirit Squadron put out a great thing with supporting the players, but we got a long way to go. I'll be curious to see if a new ownership group comes in. I know that DC United were interested in buying the Spirit. Maybe this brings them into the fold, and then suddenly they have a part of it. So you can't say, we're just going to ship them off to.
I thought the same thing.
We got to actually.
I thought the same thing. So I think it's like a distressed asset right now. If you're looking at the Spirit's public reputation, and if Baldwin is forced to sell similar to Deloy Hansen was with the team in Salt Lake, I would do that if I were the ownership of DC United. I would absolutely consider buying out the partners that were there. I just want to sort of loop back, is that the upsetting part is that it's upsetting if anyone is taken advantage of and anyone is treated in a way that's as reported is just unsatisfactory and beyond the pale. But these are the best women's soccer players in the world. This is like it, and it's almost expected and it's tolerated because they're women and because it's at the NWSL. And if could you imagine this happening to Barcelona or Real Madrid or PSG, where they sign a coach in that way, and then I think that there are stories about Sir Alex Ferguson throwing shoes at people's head and stuff in the locker room, and it's always sort of reported in a way that's like, oh, that's just the way it is. Like that's the way we do things. But this is not the way that you do things, and I just think it's very upsetting, the double standard that's in place here. And I think there was Megan Klingenberg wrote a very long Twitter post about sort of exactly that. It's like, we don't deserve this treatment by our coaches, by the league, by anyone, by the media. This is not acceptable for anyone, but it's not acceptable for a league that considers itself to be the best in the world at this. So it's time to treat these players the way that the best men players in the world get treated. Just from the standpoint of basic decency and respect. It's not about money. It's not about finance. It's about baseline respect, and you have to back that up right now.
If I'm some of the U.S. women's national team players, I am moving double time on a union. The NW this should supercharge the formation of a union, because that gives you an avenue. And I think that the large problem that the NWCL faces, you look at what and to really it would be the benefit of the NWSL to have the league to prevent these types of things from happening, to have a league that has a union where you can file. And sometimes stuff leaks out, but I mean, I'm sure there are tons of times where the union files grievances against coaches or players or what's happening. And that gives you that avenue where the league can resolve it and the league can step in, and it gives that, that private avenue where, I think a lot of these, number one, a lot of these players aren't, I mean, other than the top percent, they're not paid very well. They get housing, they get food, but they're not paid very well. And that, that comes, I think, with also, I mean, you look at how, a minimum wage workers treated versus somebody who's making
the league says salary. The league says 55,000 or 56,000 when you take into account housing stipend, which isn't nothing. That's the average they're saying, but that as far as like money to live, the liquid finance part I believe is around 23,000.
Yeah, and also do a median and let's see what that is versus your average, because I'd be curious what they're doing to calculate those numbers, and certain players are probably making more. The median salary is what you do, and also what I think could happen, and maybe I think the NWSL doesn't want to do this for one reason, is because I could see the NWSL doing exactly what the MLSPA does, which is they release their salaries. They release their salaries to the world. Everybody can look at the salaries that players are making. So I would be very curious to see if they form that union, if they take the same route. And, there's a lot of push now, no more side hustles, no more, we want to be out there getting, full-time salaries, we're professionals, we deserve it. And they do deserve it. Everybody deserves, if you're going to start a league, men's, women's, whatever, you need to pay players a living salary.
Or don't have a league.
And
if you can't afford to do that, it's just like anything else. If your business relies on immiserating humans to be able to afford to exist, you don't have a business, you have something else. So.
And we're seeing, I think there's been some talk amongst NWSL fans after all this is like, should we even support this league anymore?
Yes.
And it's tough. It's certainly, you see the league doing these things that are not great, that are very bad, that, seem like almost a lack of control of owners and making sure that, proper standards are followed. And I think one person said, if the players stop supporting it, then I'm out. And I think the players, the saying like, oh, I'm done, no more NWSL is not the right call. I think being an active part and, encouraging and almost demanding the league treat the players respectively. Demonstrations on the field, anything like that, to support the players, but also say the league needs to step up, I think is pretty important. So
I would also, we're not going to get this, but I really wish we would have the ability to know what the players think. Obviously, not while this investigation is going on, and not while certainly not on the media availability after games. But Tori Huster is the NWSLPA president, right? And she is in this situation, and she's sort of like a dual visibility situation for her. I want to know what she thinks. I want to know the players who, I'm sure that I bet you there are players that were okay with it, because there had to have been some, right? Because although if it was everyone, if every single person felt the way that some of the other people left, I think this would have come out a little sooner. So I think so what is the dynamic inside the locker room, where there were maybe some players who got picked on less, there were some players that got picked on more. It had been said over games that that Richie will yell at Ashley, and Ashley will tune him out, but Richie says that's how Ashley gets motivated. Is that how Ashley gets motivated? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not.
All of that, all of those quotes, and I think even Ashley joked about it a little bit. I think we are seeing, this is part of a larger story too. Both men's and women's professional sports is mental health is coming back, is not coming back, but it's sort of becoming more of an important aspect of sports. It's before you would have people talk. I talk about, Landon Donovan taking a sabbatical, talking a lot about his sort of how he felt mentally and how that affected his performance, being called by U.S. men's national team fans as weak, as, Landy Cakes, all the derogatory terms towards him. And now I think, we're, after, oh my goodness, after Simone Biles and everything that's happened there, I think we're starting to have a bigger conversation about, sports and mental health and treating and having players, not, they are there to entertain us and we support them, but they're not there to do it no matter what. And I think that is becoming an important part of this as well. Some players might've been fine with it. Hey, that's a coach that I've dealt with that my whole life, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna go on and be better than Richie Burke ever was. So I don't care. This is just what the job is. But there are also probably players that, it like it did with Kai McCullough. It completely killed their love of the game and completely forced them out of the game. So
and that's why
that's not good.
You
don't want that.
You're right, and I think that just to loop back on what you said and double important, the ability to make those complaints earlier through a formal grievance process makes a paper trail. It gets everything on the record. You get testimony on both sides. You get it all, and then they can decide, good, bad, indifferent, and we'll move on from there. And then that keeps it from going so far. Maybe if he gets this early on, maybe if he has an HR ding, and I think that he was apparently given a warning the last week, no more mess ups. You've had the end of your rope. So HR clearly was watching this and had heard complaints. But you would think maybe if there was something that's up to the league office and like, you did this to this player on this date, that violates these rules. You have been fined $500. You cannot do this again. It's a strike against you. Maybe that would have changed the course of this a little bit. It got way too far. If one player is leaving is bad enough. If 4 players are leaving, something has broken on your internal process to keep these players safe quite clearly. And it didn't. If Burke is guilty of all of these things, you don't feel bad about him being gone. But this even protects him, right? It protects everyone involved from it becoming unmanageable and a situation where it cannot be repaired. It got there because he was evidently potentially enabled by HR inside the organization, who didn't feel empowered to do anything serious about it, and then it got to the point it did. So all in all, horrible situation. This will continue to be a topic that we discuss as a replacement gets found, as this team continues to try to actually play through the situation and try to exist in this season of a very, very tight NWSL. And this week they had 2 days off. They were told that today and tomorrow, they're probably back maybe tomorrow. to go home, go be with their friends and family, get away, talk to if they've got personal help, which a lot of them do. I know Ashley Hatch does. I know a few of them do. Get your heads as straight as you can for this, and try to be ready to go for this upcoming game this week. But yeah, this is going to continue to be a story. NWSL has to investigate this. There has to be a big finding of truth and a very big transparency, particularly for the Spirit fans who love these players and support these players and do not want to see them being mistreated by people who are still around, people who aren't going anywhere. That's the problem. Anyway.
Yep. So moving on to, I guess, more less bad because it's a soccer game, not people's lives.
Bad on the field,
but still bad on the field. Bad on the field. There we go. But DC United lost 5-2 to Nashville, snapping a five-game unbeaten streak. And this was always going to be a tough match. I think. So we've had 24 hours. I think maybe we were. It's a different feeling. I remember before just being this team would lose games like this and I'd just be in a bad mood. But I'm almost in like that was a bad game, but there's so much good surrounding it that it's just kind of like it's like finding that raisin in your chocolate chip cookie. It's like, all right, move on. We're just gonna digest it, and you got to have I think as Julian Gressel said, you got to have the memory of a goldfish to drop that lasso and just move on. And I don't know if I'm Lasada, how much tape I show of this game, how much I really dwell on this game, or it's just like, nope, let's just go and prepare. It was an off night for a lot of players. One person in particular in goal, and we'll talk a little bit about him. John, any new thoughts? As 24 hours have settled in on this game, we now at 24 hours. How are you feeling about what happened? What transpired last night?
Similar to you, I think this is one to flush. I don't think this is indicative of a failure of a system. I think you had a player or two missing that you would have liked to see on the field. And Nashville played well. And Nashville at home, and Nashville haven't lost all season at home. So this could happen. These teams were before this game very similarly situated in the standings. So it's one of those things. These games happen. It just in another version of time, and you roll the dice again, you could just as easily see this score flip in a different world. So it's not like we're permanently outclassed by Nashville. It was a game where individual mistakes were made, and we'll get into that. And then also, a penalty conceded, some players getting back into the run of things, sort of making that more important necessarily than the outcome, making sure that those players got in. It was Ola Kamara scored. We can say that. Yeah. The man just doesn't not score.
And I think if DC had sort of been completely run off the field, and I know the 5-2 score line is very, very, it's not accurate, I think, to the way most of that game went. I think it was 3-2 through about 85 minutes, and then there was a bad giveaway, and at that point it was kind of like you would not forgive DC for kind of shoulders dropping and being like, all right, this is done, let's just pack it in. I think the fact that you looked at certain individual mistakes for players that you weren't expecting to rely on, and I think what I got into, we have three main injuries I think we can point out. We have Brendan Hines-Ike, Russell Knaus, and Bill Hamid. Those three players went down, and pretty much once Bill went down, but there was always the discussion of, okay, is the next man up really going to be good? And for a while there, they did the job. They did the job well enough. Other players stepped up sort of around them, and they stepped up as well. I mean, Tony Alfaro has been perfectly suitable stand-in. Moses Nyman has stepped in for Russell Knaus, shown flashes. I think this was a bit of a rougher game for him. He did not really do a good job, I think, imposing himself. And then we got John Kempen, who probably had the worst game of his professional career. And so, I think Black and Red United brought up sort of, I was reading, I'm pretty sure it was Jason Anderson writing their post game, said, well, maybe we see him out there against New England. He gets another chance. This was not the John Kempen, that we know. We saw what happened with Seitz. Seitz had, a sort of a bad game against San Jose, and then had, another rough game against Columbus, and that's when he was benched. I almost think though this game was way worse than that, almost to the point where if he just does basic, goalkeeping, he gets the ball in his hands and he saves it. He has the ball in his hands at least on 2 of those goals. And if he's able to actually control that and save it, then we're talking about a completely different game, in my opinion. Then I think this game was bad enough where you can say, you know what, it's maybe time to look elsewhere. Do you if you're Losada, do you give Kempen another shot?
I think Jason Anderson or whoever with that makes a very good point, and here's why. Bill is still going to be out for probably 5 more games or 5 more weeks. There's a reason you put John Kempen ahead of Chris Seitz on your depth chart and kept him there for the entire season after Bill Hamid came back. He's been, unless they've had to make up numbers and they wanted to put 3 goalies on the bench for whatever reason, or 2 goalies on the bench, he's been the guy. I now because he said that, I think you do give him another game, because if you pull him after 1 game, you've burned him a little bit. And if you have to go back to him because Chris Seitz is the 3rd goalkeeper that you've judged that he's 3rd in talent, and then you pulled Kempen out, you've got to have Seitz for like 3 more games. And if you think that Kempen just had a bad game, but overall on the day had a bad game, but overall is the better keeper, then yeah, you do probably have to roll with Kempen again, much to the chagrin of fans and maybe even me of last night, of Sunday night, also would have said that. But I think that's honestly a good point. I think that he has really made it clear by selection, as much as determining who the 2nd and 3rd keeper on a team is important, which is not really that important in the broader scheme of things. He seems to have made a declaration about where he sees them all sit in. So I think there's some value to that, honestly.
Yeah, and I think we have seen Losada. He's obviously a tough manager, but he also appears to be a very fair one. He gives players. He didn't throw Moses Nyman to the bench after his red card. He said, "Get out there. Let's see what you got, and prove show me what you got." So. I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think a lot of it's actually probably it's going to be on Zach Thornton, who I think is still the goalkeeper coach. Yep. I know they've had some people leave. It's going to be on Zach Thornton to get him back. That's where I think he's going to come in. Can he get Kempen back up? Hey, pick yourself up. You had a bad game. Show him what you can do again. So we'll see. I think it's going to be up to Losada to kind of read that. How are you going to read the player? If he, I think whatever the next moments in training might be the indicator of that. If he looks still strong in training, doing the same things, then yeah, I think he gets another shot. If he looks, like that whole game just ruined him, you got to bench him and you got to put in Chris Seitz, and because it gets much tougher. It gets way tougher to go up against New England, especially on turf. I want to talk about something that was brought up. I want to talk about Losada is not without fault. A lot of people were bringing up so Eddie Nahar did not play in this game, and a lot of people were saying he could have made a difference.
Rested for Wednesday was the official reason.
Rested for Wednesday, so you're going to go play him on field turf with his knees and his legs and all the injuries he's had. That's your answer. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have switched that and played him on a regular grass. You had a full week of rest, regular grass. Rest him for New England. Maybe you get a better performance. Maybe you get something a little bit different. Because that was certainly something that was missing from this team is when Andy Nahar's not out there, this team gets almost an extra layer. He's almost an extra player, an extra attacking player coming out of the back that teams have to account for, and it opens it up for other players. So I don't know if that would have been the message to take. And then rest him for the turf, and then he's ready to go for Atlanta. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. I'm sure maybe there might have been some other injuries that were concerned, and maybe it's just like, you know what, we don't want to press this. Let's just rest him, give him a rest, and we'll get him in there against New England. So we'll see. Yeah, very curious to see what happens there.
I mean, I thought that this lineup was extremely attacking when it was put out there. I thought I was somewhat impressed with the choices made, but I think there are quite a few players that had off nights. Or at least nights where they would, you would have expect better. I think Kevin Paredes didn't really influence the game very much, and he usually does. He has a high bar, right, at this point.
Yeah.
So
he was bottled up.
He was. Junior Moreno had an uncharacteristically ineffective night as well. Paul Arriola had I think he's not looked very great coming back from the Gold Cup. He had an assist that was a 10 out of 10 top drawer, and that should be, I think I said on Twitter, I don't think they do assists of the week, but that would be the one. I don't believe you could get one better than that. But he's not looked super sharp so far, and I'm hoping he's just sort of rounding back into form with the players around him. But Ola Kamara scored.
Yeah, and yeah, Ola Kamara scored. And again, this is what I get into with this team. I'm like, I'm not so mad about this result because they were in it till the end. They didn't play well. Let's be clear. This is not a 10 out of 10 performance. This was by far not a perfect performance. But they kept themselves, in the game for majority of it, and then just kind of lost it on a bad individual play from Kempin, and that was the game. I'm not even mad about the penalty.
Who cares?
Brilliant was running back and forth, having to cover multiple things. I think he is not the same player he was. If he has to do that, it's going to be a long night.
He already at that point had scored a goal and saved a goal from going in.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about a guy at the 87th minute having to run back after chasing the game makes a ill-advised foul. All right, well, that happens, man. that was not where the game slipped away. Like you said, at 3-2, the team had made it. DC at halftime had made it a game again, and I didn't think that was going to happen by the 41st minute. So, oh well.
I'm more encouraged by the way they got that goal before half.
Yeah.
To make it, so suddenly you're going to halftime, you get to reset and you get to make it a game. And then I am about how they lost it towards the end, and I'm still not happy about that. But that at least that's not system. That's individual mistake. Mm-hmm. They had done enough defensively to hold Mule, and Mule puts a pretty weak shot in, and just kind of Kevin just doesn't get to it. So I think that's good. I think you raised a good point about Moreno being off. I think the both center midfielders were not checking back enough. There was lots of space on the wings. I thought Gressel's service was great. I'm a little concerned about Gressel because he looked like he was struggling there towards the end. He was soldiering on, but I kind of wondered at that point. I think DC maybe still had a sub they could have burned, maybe bring somebody in to just give him a break. I'm not really sure, but he looked like he got kicked up pretty bad in this game. So I'll be curious to see if he maybe gets rested. And that's a hard one to rest because one thing he is still very, very excellent on. He was excellent on today. Set pieces and service. Yep. He has got that locked in. It's been excellent to watch, sort of. And really, I think it should. Both Gressel and Ola Kamara were absolutely in the doghouse amongst DC fans for a long time. And Losada showed patience with them. He showed, nope, we're gonna do this, and that patience is being rewarded in droves. I want to bring something up about Ola Kamara because this has been sort of talked about. He is in the goal. He is in the Golden Boot hunt. Mm-hmm. I think there's no way ifs, ands, buts about it. He is the first player. This was a stat that Stephen Goff dropped that I love. First player since Luciano Emilio in 2008 to score in 6 consecutive games. 6 consecutive games. We have not had a striker since 2008. All the strikers, Wayne Rooney, Fabian Espindola, Eddie Johnson, none of them were able to do that.
Eddie Johnson, I forgot about him.
Yeah. So you look at that stat, but there's still are fans that talk, he would just miss so many chances at the beginning. I'm like, at this point, what does he need to do? Does he need to win the Golden Boot? I mean, he is scoring at an incredible rate. We now have a bona fide striker who's putting the ball in the back of the net, who's doing what his job is, what this team has needed for years. Mm-hmm. 4 years. He's doing it. He's doing what he was advertised and what he was said to bring in. I don't know what more he can do. And I think I said on Twitter, it's a tribute to the alcoholic uncle who says, "This time I'm clean," but people still have the memories of everything bad. And I think that's kind of. I think people wanted a different striker up there, and now they're seeing the result, and that's hard to accept. I think for some fans.
Yeah, so, he's very efficient. I think it's about. You're right. I mean, right now its efficiency is like MLS historic almost as far as his minutes per goal. I think it's in the 62 or 63 minutes. I think it's just a matter of high profile misses that where the fans just made a decision, right? On a player, you just collectively make a decision. I think we made a decision earlier on this season and in seasons past. Like there is a rope, and obviously he did not lose confidence in himself. Apparently, Hernan does get on him, right? Like he told him, I was listening to the post-game press conference from the previous game, and Goff asked a question of Ola about, so Hernan says you weren't good enough at half. Do you agree with that? And how did you feel at scoring the goal in the second half? and he was basically like, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't agree. I mean, yes, I could do better, right? Like I could do better. Blah blah blah. He gave a very a good answer, but it was Hernan is not like letting him skate. I think that he is having an additional striker brought in when that additional striker was actually healthy enough to back him up and challenge him for minutes with Nigel Roberta. I think helped Ola sort of get refired. I think a little bit like that streak sort of started after Nigel was there and he was coming off the bench occasionally. And that's honestly, if you look at the minutes per game, that's why it's skewed that way, because he was oftentimes coming in at the 30th minute. He wasn't completing 90 minutes. His numbers would look a little different from that perspective. But overall, there are other problems. DC United fans, look at the rest of your team and look upon it and see where there are weaknesses that need to be strengthened. Forward, right now, is not anywhere near your problem at all. If you want to talk about backup striker, you want to say maybe we'll see what Nigel Roberta is when he's healthy, and maybe Ramon Abila is somebody that can do something. He played 13, 17 minutes in Nashville and will probably play again in New England. There are other places where you should be spending your time gnashing your teeth, I think, now for the rest of the season.
Right now, you go on who can help, who's a sure thing right now. Right now, going in, I mean, this could all completely careen off. He could start to struggle, and suddenly we're having a different conversation. Absolutely. Right now, 2022, Ola Kamara leading the line, no issues with that. No issues with that 100%. If the team then is able to then say, okay, we can pay him. He'll probably want some more money. I think he's in a contract year, if I'm not wrong. So it's going to be on the team, I think, to re-sign his. I have to go back and look. I'm not sure what his I feel like this was sort of an option year they sort of took on him, or he's entering that option year. I have no problems with this team going and re-signing him and bringing him back, even after, from what I'm seeing so far. We see now he's able to get comfortable. He's able to stay healthy. Players are able to find that service to him, and he's doing his job and putting the ball in the back of the net. And if that allows the team then to not have to spend that designated player money on a striker and can look elsewhere in the field, maybe another midfielder, maybe someone else that can sort of connect with him and supply him the ball, maybe a player that fits Hernan's system a little bit better in that midfield position. 100% okay. Okay with what
the DP Drew Skundrich, the DP version of Drew Skundrich.
And let's talk about Drew. Drew, I do want to mention Drew. I thought came in and really settled down that middle of the field. I think that's why that game stayed 3-2 for so long, because he was able to come in and sort of be that sort of energetic destroyer. He really played sort of a different role because he's played further up the field. This time he was brought in more centrally, and I thought he actually did a really good job, sort of basically settling that game down so DC could try to find opportunities to score. It just didn't happen. Anything else we want to add to this game? Anything else we want to?
Yeah, I'm happy that Edison Flores got some minutes. He didn't do anything, and that's fine. Ramon Abila did not do much. That's fine. It's right now. It's for Flores. It's about getting back in a sync. This week, we found out that he's healthy enough to play, but he's not synced up, and that's what these minutes for, because you need him. You wrote a great article about how much you need him, and now he has some games here. I think he's going to get more and more and more time. I think he'll probably get another 20, 30 minutes in New England. I think when you get back home, he'll play a little bit more maybe. You got to figure out how he's going to be reintegrated into this attack. Yordi Reyna probably is the one who makes way, obviously.
Yeah, he did not, and I don't think he had a good game. I think he held on to the ball a little bit too much, and I think actually it was also Nashville doing a better job of taking Ola Kamara out of the game. They were double teaming him very heavily and basically told Yordi, try to figure out, see if you can score. See what you can do. And they gambled a little bit on that, and they were right, because I thought Yordi Reyna did not have a strong performance. I think there are a lot of fans out there. The performance from Edison Flores was rough. Mm-hmm. Again, he's coming off injury. He's not in sync. I think there are a lot of fans out there that have, if they've run out of patience with Ola Kamara, they have certainly run out of patience with Edison Flores.
The curse of high salary, man. They come for you.
Yeah. And so I will just contend he has very little. 2020. Let's just take that, toss in the wastebasket. He was injured. I think he broke his jaw or something like that, if I remember correctly. Something like that.
Something in his face.
Something in his face. Take that season, toss it in the trash. 2021, he started to. It was starting. You could see it. I could see little flashes that said, "Okay, this guy's worth it." I think there was a game against Chicago when he had a really nice assist on Adrian Perez, and I saw it, and then he got injured again. and then it's sort of been a long road back. So I think the talent is there. I do believe the talent is there. This guy's not worth $5 million just for nothing. His skills in League IMX were very well known. I think that he needs to stay healthy. Health is his most important asset right now. If he stays healthy, he builds that rhythm. I think we'll see something that will lead us to say, and he might be the final piece that takes this team to the next level. We've seen a lot of players come in, and he's sort of that final piece that has not really found it yet. Every player here has done something. We tweeted the last 3 months of this are that time, right? I think if he stays healthy, once he gets fully integrated in this team, he's going to have a run, if he stays healthy, an uninterrupted run of 2 months of important games when they matter, with a team around him that is creating chances all over the place, or has been at least anyway, a forward that buries opportunities now, which he may not have had last year when Ola was not firing at his current level of confidence. This is when you show how you fit in and what kind of talent you bring. I think other people were saying, he has a contract, a guaranteed contract for next year, so they won't get rid of him. That's not true. That won't matter at all. I think that they are gonna decide what this player can be when he's healthy, because a lot of this team won't change next year. They don't have the money for a full retool. Also because the team has done fine for the most. I mean, it's done well. So next year is not going to be 5 new starters. That's just not going to happen. So you're going to want to see for sure if you have a saleable asset that doesn't fit. That's who you move. You try to. Yeah. So he needs to perform well once he gets healthy, and I hope that he does, because it's cheaper to have a player that you've already paid that transfer fee on do well enough to stay and contribute than it will be to go out and find somebody that's going to do it for you. That's just the math. That's how it works. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I thought he had maybe a 3-year contract with the 2-year option? That might have been it.
Either way, if it doesn't fit, it benefits them to sell him out of contract. That doesn't make him unmovable. It really has nothing to do with anything. So I wouldn't worry about that if you're sort of wondering.
Yeah,
can you move
you're not worried. You're not worried about it. You're not worried about it right now. You're not worried about it right now. Right now, it's just about getting him into this team, because you need to see what he's got. You need to see everything. He needs to get a chance to really show what he's got. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull up. I want to see what exactly his contract is, because I seem to remember. So Pablo Mau's reporting his contract runs 5 seasons. I'm guessing it's 3 years and a 2-year option. That would make sense.
5-year guaranteed. 5-year guaranteed for that player is bananas crazy. For a player in the middle of his career making 1.5, that would be. I hope that's not the case, because I think that's sort of malpractice from a roster construction perspective.
Well, I think so. It's a 5-year deal. Most of the time, there's not, usually very rarely do you see the reported options. I'm guessing 3 years with a reported 2-year option is probably what we're seeing right now. All MLS contracts have options. This is not a 5-year with 2-year option. No. 3 years, 2-year option. So I think really he's got. I think the team, regardless of how he plays, unless he is so just god awful, gets injured again, which could happen.
And then you can't move
I think as long as he gives you at least a little bit of something in the run up to these games, as long as he contributes a few assists, gets in there, I think you see him back next year, regardless, because I think the team is going to give him all the opportunities he has. You get another year, maybe you can build something else around him, and I think that's a lot of money just to say goodbye to without at least giving it the full run. I don't know.
Well, you could sell him.
I could be wrong.
You could sell him for instance, if he did okay but it wasn't a fit, and you had another guaranteed year, you could sell him and make money. Whereas if you play him out next year and he has an option you don't pick up, then he goes and walks for free, and you don't get any of it back. You've lost the transfer fee. None of it's recoupable.
Yeah,
I don't know how much you're going to get right now. For this player,
and I think that's going to be the thing. Is if you take a $5 million offer that you made for him, it was $5 million, right? $5 million, and then you're only able to get $2 million back. Well,
it's better than zero
at that point. Yeah.
Zero, man.
I mean, better than zero, but at that point, I'm just might as well just see if he can. And then if he performs well, you get that 2-year option. You get to hold on to him, and then you get to look maybe to increase your assets. So
it's like a GameStop. It's like a GameStop situation.
Yeah,
you paid $100 for it. GameStop will give you $450. It's better than zero, but very marginally better than zero.
Well, we'll see. He's got another opportunity as the team goes up against New England Revolution on Wednesday. Short turnaround, probably good. I'll be curious to see when he comes onto the field. Don't think he starts just yet, but I think we'll see him. We'll certainly see him out there. He may get the start. This is going to be a turnaround. I think maybe
that would be hilarious.
Maybe your eye
on turf.
What's that?
It would be hilarious if both he and Nahar get the start on turf.
His best game. Mind you, his best game that he ever played for DC was against New England on the road. Best game he played for this
in
team.
A loss.
And in a loss. But he had, I think, at least a couple assists.
Yep, 2 assists.
Looked very, very good. And sort of providing, and he's got a goal scorer out there in Ola Kamara now that's firing on all cylinders. That was not the case in that game. So I don't know, but I think he comes off the bench. I think you're maybe looking at that Atlanta game. Maybe you give him that start at home in front of the home fans. I could see something like that. We'll have to see. Should be an interesting week coming up for DC. I think that Atlanta game is a little bit of a trap game. I'm not gonna lie, because of they've started to look like they're starting to put it together. You got Joseph Martinez getting a goal. When he gets goals, he scores in buckets, and he does like to score against DC. We shall see what happens.
The Revs are 6-0-1 in their last 7 games, so that's a bad sign off the jump. Gustavo Bo is the only person scoring more goals than Ola Kamara right now with his 12th goal of the season. Very similar per 90, almost similar per 90 scores. I mean, their last game was against Revolution beat Toronto 2-1 on the weekend, and I think it came back. I think they were down 1 and scored 2 unanswered. Toronto being sort of a weird barometer for DC United to benchmark themselves against after that we beat them so bad they fired their coach. But the Revs are always a tough matchup. They've been a tough matchup since Bruce Arena came back, and they've turned into a different team basically since then. And they've also brought in a lot of new players, so they're basically a new team. On short rest, on turf, on the road, with I wouldn't say there's not really big injury concerns at this point other than the long-term guys. I don't, what are you hoping to get at? All right, here's the dual prong question. Give me a best case scenario and what you think is going to happen for this game on Wednesday.
Best case scenario is that, number one, by the way, I should say New England's best player is picked up a hamstring injury, Carl's Gill. That is a huge loss for them. So I think they are not going to have a lot. They're going to be missing some of the offense. They're still a very good team, don't get me wrong, but that's something DC doesn't have to account for. Best case scenario is always a win.
Right.
I think you're looking at if the team can return to that sort of stout defensive work that we saw them do against this same Revolution team with Carl's Gill earlier in the season. They managed to hold it, and it was just kind of a fluky own goal that sort of led. They have a much, much stronger team now. Again, differences in season and where people are. I think if we see a team go out there, I'll be curious to see what the lineup's going to look like. How is Losada going to manage these minutes? I mean, I could see a scenario. It would not be out of the realm of possibility for this team to sneak out like a 2-1 victory. Maybe on like a last minute goal. Maybe they kind of do the same type of thing they did against Montreal, where they kind of just, sort of rally and pull together. And really, I think that would be a huge result if they can get it. More likely is hard. I mean, the more likely result is maybe either a draw or a 2. I don't think we'll see something crazy with the loss. But I think we'll see maybe like a 2 or a 2-0 loss or a 2-1 loss or a 3-1 loss or something like that. I don't know. It's really hard to judge this team because they've been playing so well, and really the Columbus game for me sticks out as a game where just like they really put them to the fire, and I could see something like that happening. Yep. Yes, the Revolution are a good team and they're riding high right now, but every team's got to come down, and DC's not going to be an easy game for them. So I think and DC's going to want to, and we've seen this team bounce back. We've seen this team do very well bouncing back from bad results. We see them pick up a bad result, they come back the next game, and I'm pretty sure the run came off a bad result where they should have done better. I think they picked up a loss and it wasn't good, and then they managed to sort of bounce back, and they went on this run that they went, this 5-game win. So now you got a chance to do that again. So we'll see. I don't know. I just say I don't know what's going to happen this game. This game is totally up in the air. I could see it going so many different ways, and that's the beauty of this team right now. That's the beauty of this team right now, is that they are exciting, they're fun, they're interesting. You never know what you're going to get. I'm intrigued to watch them now, and I keep talking about that because it really is incredible. Give me a thought. Am I being too glowing now after a loss?
Honestly, that's what I was going to say. Best case scenario is a 2-1 win. I think that they're unlikely to keep them off off the books entirely. I think they're going to probably score. They're too prolific, even with Carlos Hill being out. I think that they have many. Adam Buksa, who just got called up to the Poland national team, which is very cool for him. I think they're going through a bit of a retool after Euros. I think they're still very, very dangerous, and I think our defense, like you said, it's hard to not carry in some of the bias from the Nashville game about the defense, because there were a lot of weird individual mistakes that led to problems. Also, the goalkeeping is still going to be a problem, maybe. So I think 2-1 is the best case. I think 3-1 loss is the likely situation. I think that, sort of a situation where you get behind. It's very, very similar to Nashville, and they score. Either you come out ahead and they get 2 goals back and you're chasing the game, and one just happens because you're chasing the game. I don't know. I'm getting a feeling that this is going to be tough for them. And I think I mentioned it in the post-game show. What do you remember? What I thought? My handicapping of DC United to win was? Do you remember what I said?
I don't remember.
I know that I had it was definitely above 300, and I just checked right now. It's plus 430 for DC United to win.
Phew.
So
take a bet on that. Take a flyer.
Minus 170 for New England to win, which it looks like is the
what's the draw? Do you have the draw?
Draw is
that would be a smart bet.
Draw is
probably.
plus 270. This is the second most favored game of the weekend. The other one is Kansas City to beat Portland at minus 190. And
you have to. I'm curious who did New England play? Because that can also influence
last
things.
Week?
That can also
Toronto.
Or who do they play on this Sunday? Oh. They got Cincinnati. Never mind. At home too. This is definitely the tougher game of the two.
They are.
I was hoping they were going to play like Philly or Nashville or somebody to like make it a little bit better. Maybe say, hey, maybe we can start a weaker side and just kind of see that one out.
They are polishing their muskets right now in anticipation of this next 7 days. They're like, this is what I'm talking about. So it could go either way. And also, like I think you said, that I don't think Atlanta is a soft landing for them. Should this game go poorly, and it could, I think we just talked about all the ways in which it could. Should these sort of, you're coming off the back of 2 lopsided losses potentially, and you're going into Atlanta at home. Atlanta right now is not the Atlanta of earlier this season where they looked like the Keystone Cops and everything was falling apart. So I don't despair either way. Even if you do go through a bad week here, a bad 9-day period where you pick up no points, not the panic button. It just sort of sometimes this happens. We're still, we are very, very, we're bullish on Losada Ball. We're bullish on when these players are healthy and when they have just a better matchup. So we'll see how it goes. We got to play this game first before we talk about Atlanta on Saturday, but it could go. It's certainly a coin flip. You and I are just completely sort of at a loss for how this game is going to go, I think.
Yeah, I think both games. I think you look at this. 3 points is acceptable of these next 2 games. 4 points is very, very good, and anything above that is excellent. Which I think
4 points is excellent. I think if they're able to get a win and a draw out of these next 2 games, I got no complaints, no matter how they occur.
Yep, and then you got a Philly team coming up the next week. Tough game. But a team that DC United has sort of figured out a little bit. I think I think that's a game. If I'm Losada, I'm circling with big red letters. I want to knock them off because they're sinking a little bit. The East has just gone crazy. I mean, New England's at the top, but everywhere else it's been just back and forth. Who's second? Who's teams playing well? Teams not playing well. Columbus are sinking. All those other things. So. Should be. It's going to be fun, regardless of what happens. It's going to be fun to watch.
And also, and for you can join us for a post game on Wednesday night to talk about how this game goes, however it goes, and make sure you can call in and we can talk about it.
Yep, and we're probably going to keep rolling with this. People seem to like it.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening again. We'll be there on Wednesday doing post game. You guys are incredible. You guys are why we do this show. Thank you all. Thank you to everybody for the warm response on our Washington Spirit co-stream. We really wish the Spirit were doing more Twitch games, but definitely keep an eye on that. As long as they're on the Indy still on Twitch and we got games, I think we're going to make a habit of trying to do that. again, I guess, twitter.com, patreon.com. Patreons are getting this show right as soon as I'm done. So I'm going to wrap up and edit the show and put it out for you guys.
Monday night for you guys, probably. Maybe Tuesday morning. Twitch, make sure Twitch, if you're following us on Twitch, this is the only place we're going to stream tonight. Obviously, the weird situation where we're just doing old school audio, but generally, we're going to be doing that. We're going to be doing that thing for you live on Twitch. So follow us there. And if you want to subscribe, it's very easy to do so, and sometimes if you have Amazon Prime, you could subscribe to us for free. So do that if you would like. We'd love you to.
Yep, great. And thank you all so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys on Wednesday night. Vamos.
Vamos.